When do you know it's time to give up? Turns out, humans are terrible at knowing when to quit. The ground shook as massive alien war machines stomped across the scorched earth, their towering forms casting long, ominous shadows over the battlefield. The Ecar, an advanced warrior race from a distant star, had landed with the confidence of predators, certain of an easy kill. They had scouted this planet for years, understanding its resources, its weaknesses, and most importantly, the psychology of its dominant species, or so they thought. Commander Keenox stood at the forefront, his four eyes scanning the horizon. His blue-gray skin shimmered under the harsh sun, and his mandibles clicked in anticipation. This was supposed to be a swift victory. The humans, with their primitive weapons and fragile bodies, would surely scatter at the sight of the Ecar war machines. They had seen it before on countless worlds. Fear was their greatest ally. But here, on this desolate plain of shattered earth and broken dreams, things were not proceeding according to plan. The human forces were not running. They stood their ground, rifles ready, eyes resolute. The front line, a ragtag assembly of soldiers from various nations, stared down the advancing alien war machines with a mix of grim determination and defiant fury. Their leader, Captain Briggs, a hardened veteran with a face carved from stone, barked orders with unwavering confidence. "Hold the line. Don't give them an inch." Briggs' voice was a rallying cry, cutting through the cacophony of war. Keenox's translator device interpreted the humans' words. He couldn't comprehend why these creatures didn't flee. His kind had assumed that a show of overwhelming force would break their spirits, yet here they stood, ready to fight, ready to die. A sudden barrage of plasma fire erupted from the Ecar front lines, searing the air with intense heat and deadly precision. The human soldiers ducked and weaved, returning fire with a coordinated effort. Their ballistic weapons were far less advanced but lethal nonetheless. Explosions rocked the ground, sending debris and body parts flying in a grotesque ballet of death. A young soldier, Private Jackson, barely 18 and with the ink still wet on his enlistment papers, fired his rifle with trembling hands. His heart pounded like a drum in his chest, but he refused to let fear overtake him. Beside him, Sergeant Morales, a grizzled veteran with a thick beard and a scar that ran the length of his cheek, shouted encouragement. "Stay focused, Jackson. Aim for the joints and eyes. That's where they're vulnerable." Jackson nodded, swallowing hard, and adjusted his aim. He squeezed the trigger, sending a burst of bullets toward an advancing Ecar. The alien's armor deflected most of the shots, but one found its mark, striking an exposed joint. The creature stumbled, and Jackson fired again, this time hitting the alien's eye. The Ecar screeched in pain, its blue blood splattering the ground as it collapsed. Keenox watched in disbelief as more of his soldiers fell. These humans were tenacious, ferocious even. They fought with a primal intensity he had never encountered before. His kind valued strength and honor in combat, but these humans fought with something else, something harder to quantify but undeniably potent: desperation. Human artillery opened up from the rear lines, hurling shells with deafening booms. The explosions tore through the Ecar ranks, sending limbs and machinery flying. The alien war machines, once thought invincible, now appeared vulnerable under the relentless assault. Captain Briggs surveyed the battlefield, his mind racing. The Ecar were formidable, but they were not invulnerable. He had studied their tactics, their strengths, and their weaknesses, and he had one advantage they did not. He knew the heart of a human soldier. Mortar teams, concentrate fire on the center. Riflemen, keep up the pressure. Show these bastards what it means to mess with Earth. A chorus of affirmations followed, and the human soldiers redoubled their efforts. The air was thick with smoke and the acrid scent of burning metal. The screams of the dying, both human and alien, formed a macabre symphony of war. Keenox's confidence wavered. His forces were taking heavy losses, far more than anticipated. The humans' stubborn refusal to retreat or surrender defied all logic. It was as if they drew strength from the very act of resisting. In the midst of the chaos, a squad of Ecar infantry broke through the human lines, charging towards a bunker that served as a command post. Briggs saw them coming and knew he had to act quickly. "Bravo team, on me," he shouted, grabbing his rifle and sprinting towards the breach. A dozen soldiers followed, their boots pounding the earth. They met the Ecar head-on in a brutal clash of flesh and steel. Briggs fired point-blank into an alien's face, the recoil jarring his shoulder. He swung the butt of his rifle into another's head, feeling the crunch of exoskeleton give way. Around him, his men fought with savage intensity, matching the alien's blow for blow. Private Jackson found himself face to face with an Ecar warrior, its mandibles clicking menacingly. Can courage alone defy the odds? Private Jackson raised his rifle, but the alien swatted it aside, sending him sprawling. The Ecar loomed over him, raising a bladed arm for the kill. Jackson scrabbled in the dirt, his fingers closing around a fallen knife. As the blade descended, he thrust upwards with all his might, driving the knife into the alien's throat. Blue blood gushed over him as the Ecar gurgled and fell. Briggs and his men pushed the remaining aliens back, reclaiming the ground inch by bloody inch. The Ecar squad was decimated, their corpses littering the battlefield. Panting, covered in dirt and blood, Briggs looked around. His soldiers were battered but unbroken. They had held the line. Keenox, observing from a distance, felt a rare emotion stir within him, doubt. These humans, with their relentless spirit and refusal to yield, were not like any enemy he had faced before. They were proving to be a formidable adversary. As the sun began to set, casting long shadows over the battlefield, both sides took stock of their losses. The war was far from over, but today the humans had shown their true mettle. For the first time, the Ecar commander wondered if they might have underestimated their enemy. Night fell over the battlefield, a quiet blanket that muffled the sounds of the wounded and dying. The eerie silence was punctuated by the occasional distant explosion or the sharp crack of a rifle, reminding both humans and Ecar that the war was far from over. Stars twinkled overhead, indifferent to the carnage below. Captain Briggs and his men huddled around a small makeshift command post, their faces illuminated by the pale glow of portable lamps. They were weary but resolute, their eyes filled with grim determination. The day's victory had bolstered their spirits, but they knew the Ecar would return, likely stronger and more determined. "All right, listen up," Briggs said, his voice cutting through the murmurs. "We've got a short window to regroup and resupply. Intel suggests the Ecar are amassing their forces for a counterattack at dawn. We need to be ready." Sergeant Morales leaned forward, his eyes hard. "What about reinforcements? Any word from HQ?" Briggs shook his head. "Communications are still down. We're on our own for now. We can't rely on help coming. We have to hold this position no matter what." Private Jackson, bandaged and bruised but still determined, spoke up. "Sir, do we have any plan to disrupt their build-up? Maybe a strike to slow them down?" A thoughtful silence fell over the group. Briggs rubbed his chin, contemplating. "It's risky, but it might buy us the time we need. Morales, take a squad and see if you can infiltrate their lines. Plant charges on their supply depots, anything that looks important. Make it hurt. Morales nodded, a grim smile tugging at his lips. Consider it done, sir. The squad moved out under the cover of darkness, slipping through the shattered landscape like ghosts. The Ecar encampment loomed ahead, a hive of activity as the aliens prepared for their next assault. Morales and his men moved cautiously, avoiding patrols and using the terrain to their advantage. Every step was a calculated risk, every shadow a potential threat. As they neared the supply depot, Morales signaled for the men to spread out. They placed charges on fuel tanks, ammunition stores, and key structures. The tension was palpable, every second feeling like an eternity. Just as they finished setting the last charge, a patrol of Ecar soldiers rounded the corner. The humans froze, the aliens' glowing eyes scanning the area. For a moment, it seemed they might pass without noticing, but then a shout rang out, and chaos erupted. Move, move. Morales shouted, firing his weapon as the charges detonated. The night sky lit up with a series of blinding explosions, the shockwaves tearing through the alien camp. Ecar soldiers were thrown through the air, and structures collapsed in a cascade of fire and debris. Morales and his men sprinted back towards their lines, pursued by furious Ecar. Bullets and plasma bolts zipped past, the air thick with the acrid smell of burning metal and flesh. Private Jackson stumbled, a searing pain in his leg as an alien round found its mark. He gritted his teeth and kept moving, helped along by a fellow soldier. Back at the human camp, Briggs watched the explosions with a mix of satisfaction and concern. The mission had been a success, but now they had to deal with the fallout. The Ecar would be enraged and desperate for revenge. Dawn broke with a bloody sunrise, casting a red hue over the battlefield. The Ecar launched their counterattack as expected, but the humans were ready. Trenches had been dug, fortifications strengthened, and every soldier stood prepared to fight to the last breath. The alien war machines advanced once more, their metal feet pounding the earth. Plasma cannons opened fire, sending deadly beams towards the human lines. Briggs stood at the forefront, his rifle at the ready, his voice a steadying force amidst the chaos. Hold your fire until they're in range. Make every shot count. The Ecar closed the distance, their ranks a formidable wall of muscle and metal. But the humans did not waver. As the aliens came within range, Briggs gave the order, and a storm of bullets and rockets erupted from the human positions. The front line lit up with muzzle flashes, the air filled with the deafening roar of combat. Ecar soldiers fell in droves, their once invincible war machines now vulnerable under the relentless human assault. Subscribe to my channel for more epic tales and unforgettable battles. Their armor was pierced by concentrated fire. Explosions rocked the war machines, sending twisted metal and alien limbs flying. The humans fought with a ferocity born of desperation, their resolve unbreakable. Private Jackson, despite his injury, fired with grim determination. His leg throbbed with every movement, but he ignored the pain, focusing on the task at hand. Each shot felt like a small victory, each fallen alien a step closer to survival. Sergeant Morales, bloodied but unbowed, led a countercharge against a breached section of the line. His men followed with a fierce battle cry, pushing the Ecar back with sheer force of will. The ground was slick with blood, the air filled with the stench of death, but the humans did not falter. Keenox watched the battle unfold, his confidence eroding with each passing moment. The humans were supposed to be weak, easy prey for the might of the Ecar. Yet here they stood, unyielding, their spirit unbroken. He realized with a sinking feeling that they had underestimated these creatures. The battle raged on, a brutal testament to the resilience and tenacity of the human spirit. As the sun climbed higher in the sky, both sides fought with everything they had, neither willing to give an inch. In the heart of the chaos, Captain Briggs knew one thing for certain: they would fight until their last breath, for their home, for their people, and for the hope of a future free from alien tyranny. The battle raged for hours, a relentless storm of violence and defiance. The humans, outgunned and outnumbered, fought with a tenacity that defied reason. Captain Briggs and his men stood as the last bulwark against the Ecar onslaught, their spirits unbroken despite the overwhelming odds. As noon approached, the battlefield was a nightmarish landscape of smoke, fire, and twisted metal. Both sides had suffered heavy losses, but the Ecar continued to press forward, their determination matched only by the humans' unyielding resolve. Keenox, observing from his command post, grew increasingly frustrated. The humans' resilience was unlike anything he had encountered. He needed to break their spirit once and for all. With a decisive gesture, he ordered his elite guards forward, massive, heavily armored Ecar warriors known as the Iron Fist. The Iron Fist advanced with brutal efficiency, their armored forms impervious to conventional fire. They smashed through the human lines, their sheer power overwhelming. Captain Briggs saw the threat and knew they needed a desperate plan. "Morales, take your men and flank those behemoths. We need to hit them where it hurts," Briggs commanded, his voice steady despite the chaos. Sergeant Morales nodded and rallied his remaining men. They moved swiftly, using the debris and trenches for cover, and maneuvered around the battlefield to flank the Iron Fist. The massive aliens were focused on the front lines, oblivious to the threat closing in from the side. "Now!" Morales shouted, and his men unleashed a barrage of explosives and concentrated fire. The Iron Fist, caught off guard, staggered under the assault. One by one, they fell, their invincible facade shattered by the humans' relentless ingenuity. Briggs watched with a mix of pride and relief as the Iron Fist were brought down. But the battle was far from over. Keenox, furious at the turn of events, ordered a full-scale assault, throwing everything he had into a final push. The ground trembled as the Ecar war machines advanced, supported by waves of infantry. The humans, battered but unbroken, prepared for what could be their last stand. Briggs rallied his men, his voice a beacon of hope amidst the despair. "This is it, boys. We hold here, or we die trying. For Earth." A thunderous cheer erupted from the soldiers, their resolve steeled by their captain's words. They dug in, ready to face the oncoming storm. As the Ecar forces closed in, the humans unleashed everything they had left. Artillery, rockets, and bullets filled the air, creating a wall of death that slowed the alien advance. But the Ecar were relentless, their superior numbers pushing forward despite the carnage. Private Jackson, his leg bandaged and his body aching, fought with a ferocity born of desperation. He fired his rifle until it overheated, then grabbed a fallen comrade's weapon and kept firing. Around him, his fellow soldiers did the same, their determination unwavering. Sergeant Morales led a charge against a breach in the line, his men following with unwavering loyalty. They clashed with the Ecar in brutal hand-to-hand combat, the air filled with the sounds of metal against metal and the cries of the dying. Keenox himself joined the fray, his massive form cutting a swath through the human ranks. He was a whirlwind of destruction, his fury driving him forward. Briggs saw the alien commander and knew this was their chance. "Cover me," Briggs shouted, charging towards Keenox with a group of his best soldiers. They fought their way through the chaos, determined to take down the alien leader. Keenox turned as Briggs approached, his eyes filled with contempt. "You are a fool, human. You cannot win." "We'll see about that," Briggs replied, raising his rifle and firing. The bullets bounced off Keenox's armor, but Briggs kept coming, his determination unwavering. The two commanders clashed, their battle a microcosm of the larger war. Keenox's strength was immense, but Briggs fought with a fierce determination that matched the aliens' fury. Around them, their men fought and died, the outcome hanging in the balance. Briggs dodged a powerful swing from Keenox, rolling to the side and firing at the aliens' exposed joints. The shot struck true, and Keenox staggered, roaring in pain and anger. Briggs seized the moment, charging forward and plunging his knife into Keenox's chest. The alien commander gasped, his eyes wide with shock. "Impossible!" Briggs twisted the knife, his face set in grim determination. "Not for us." Keenox fell, his massive form collapsing to the ground. With their leader down, the Ecar forces faltered, their cohesion breaking. The humans, seeing their chance, pushed forward with renewed vigor. "Drive them back," Morales shouted, rallying his men. "For Earth." The human soldiers surged forward, their spirits lifted by the sight of Keenox's fall. They fought with everything they had, pushing the Ecar back inch by bloody inch. The alien war machines, now leaderless and disorganized, fell one by one under the relentless human assault. As the sun began to set, the tide of battle shifted. The Ecar, realizing their defeat, began to retreat, their once unbreakable lines crumbling under the human onslaught. The humans pursued, driving the invaders from their soil. By nightfall, the battlefield was quiet. The humans stood victorious, their bodies battered but their spirits unbroken. They had faced an overwhelming foe and emerged triumphant, their defiance and courage a testament to the indomitable human spirit. Captain Briggs surveyed the battlefield, his heart heavy with the loss of so many brave men, but he knew they had achieved something extraordinary. They had shown the galaxy that humanity would not bow, would not run, and would never surrender. "Good work, everyone," Briggs said, his voice filled with pride. "We did it. We held the line." The soldiers cheered, their voices echoing across the battlefield. They had faced the might of the Ecar and had not only survived but had won. It was a day that would be remembered for generations, a testament to the unbreakable spirit of humanity. As the stars shone down on the victorious soldiers, they knew that no matter what the future held, they would always stand together, ready to fight for their home and their freedom. Subscribe to my channel to never miss an epic story.